turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, no one volunteered that they're living completely off all their produce that they're growing yet, but I commend you for being here because obviously you're interested in growing food. You realize the problems. What's going on, as you mentioned inside, is that it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy to get more control and more power over us. And so garden now while we still can. They're going to try to stop us. But if you grow your food, if you keep heirloom seeds and others around about you grow food, you may grow great tomatoes and cucumbers. You may grow great squash and potatoes. You may grow great zucchini and peppers, tomatoes. Guess what? If you're in community, you have enough food. And when you grow in the ground, every year's different. You might have one year you have a profuse amount of one thing and not so much of the other, but everyone that's growing is going to have some success if they take care of it, at least in one area. And that's what you have to look at and try to build community. And that's my little pitch for community. But I've been doing this for 20 some years. I have a background in permaculture, which is just a design methodology. Korean natural farming. I went to Korea and learned about putting together your own inputs, because that's another thing they're doing is controlling what they're using for fertilizers and making it limited in regards to what you can do. And honestly, think about it. Why are all the problems with the food? Why is there all the problems with the land? And they continue to put more and more fertilizers because it's unnecessary. It's an economic thing. It's motivated by marketing. I have some friends that did a test on corn, and corn needs a lot of food. They started at what the suggested amount that the fertilizer salesman told them. They went down in increments, and they got clear down to 5% before they found any diminishing return. What does that tell you? We're pouring a lot of stuff into the ground that's killing the ground, and it's not bringing back nutrient-dense food. And part of the reason why we're unhealthy, we were talking about not knowing about microbes. Your gut biome is populated with your immune system, which is the microbes. And some scientists claim that your gut biome, you have more microbes in you than you have cells. If that's the case, think about it. Maybe the microbes are hosting us. But nonetheless, those are the things that are going on, and that's how we have a healthy gut biome. But if we don't eat nutrient-dense food that's grown from an area that has a microbial balance on that, how can we expect to have that balance in our gut? We don't. And so that's why we have to look at nature, what to do with it. That goes into the tower, whether you grow tower, whether you go on the ground, it doesn't matter. You're here looking, please don't postpone it. Begin to grow. I've stopped doing all I'm doing in regards to the design install, and it's a real stretch for me, but I feel like I have a mandate to teach people how to grow food now, because we need to learn how to grow food to bring security. And we say, oh, that's daunting. Your great-grandparents all grew it. They all grew their food, okay? And the conventional farming, they talk about conventional farming, total misnomer. Conventional farming should be armament farming, because that came out of Second World War. They need to do something with the armament system. They knew that ammonium nitrate produced a great bomb, but it also makes stuff grow fast. Not balanced, not healthy, but fast. And so we don't need to have all that. You can live off of Red Bull for an afternoon, but you don't want to do it every day. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the food that we have. And so we have to bring nutrients back to it. So we have to feed the soil, love the soil, bring nutrients into the soil, and then it takes care of us by taking the plants and getting into our stomach, which is healthy. That's why we have so many issues with overeating. It's not really even live food. If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. Okay, I have a friend that's a farmer up in Kansas, and he has about 4,000 acres. I talked to him last year, and this is all what I have. I do scalable, so I can do it for him. But he's so hesitant because the fertilizer salesman have him over the barrel, and they told him, okay, you have to do it. You have to, if you want to have fertilizer, if you want to grow anything at all next year, you have to pay now 6 months in advance, not a deposit, but in full. So he had to pay $165,000 for urea, which smells like urine, which is kind of related, to put on the land, and he could only do 1,000 acres because that's all he had enough money for. Okay, and I asked him what his organic content was of his soil. This is in Kansas. I grew up in Oregon, and I always thought that was a breadbasket. If you remember studying when the glaciers come down, had all the thick, great topsoil. Should be at least 7%. He told me it was 1.5 to 2%. That is the breadbasket, and our food is coming from that via processing. And when they harvest it, most of the time they harvest it green, and then they bring it to us and they gas it and make it ready because they put it in humidity and temperature-controlled buildings, and then we eat it. It's all about marketing. Well, marketing is not a bad thing if you're marketing something that's for the benefit of all, but if it's just for the benefit of your hip pocket, it's not a good thing. So we need to feed the soil back. If you get compost, most of the compost around here in town, like I'm in Fort Worth, have a farm in Fort Worth, and all the compost down there, if you don't make it your own, if you're selling it, it's got to be a leaf base. I like more biodiversity, so there's a couple places I can get it that have it where they use zoo poo from the Fort Worth Zoo. And so you have that mix in. That's a different biological mix. But you still need to add things to it. The thing they put in the tower garden is a sea mineral, and that's basically a sea salt product that has all the trace minerals that we would normally have within us. If you chuck, they found out in times of war that you could actually take the water from the sea, purify it, and utilize that as a rehydration for people with an IV. Think about that. And we need to understand that through all the things we've gotten to is from the time of war, but also during the time of war, back in the Second World War, which basically no one here remembers that, but back in the Second World War, they had what was called victory gardens. And between 40 and 50% of all the food consumed by all the citizens of the U.S. here and overseas was produced in the victory garden. What was a front yard garden that they just grow garden food. Now, are they that much smarter than us? That much more capable than us? No, but they were more focused and had less diversion. So we have to get back to what's important and be able to do it. Because even if you have food available, which is getting less and less available because there's less farm workers, the distribution, all these sort of things, are you going to be able to afford it? See what's been happening with the price of food. I mean, go out for a fast food meal and you're paying as much as for a good dine-in meal you did 2 years ago. It's insane. So we need to grow food, know where our food coming from, and value our family enough that we know that it's healthy the best we can, and get everybody involved. Make it a community thing. Build your life around having food. Remember there was a guy that went door to door breaking bread and having bread together with one another? We need to get back to that. Okay, we need to. But what I have here today, we have some microbes. I'm going to have, if I can, Glenn, if you can put in these beds. We only have a couple more minutes. I have trace minerals, which are sea minerals with humate on them. That's it. And I'm a dealer of these in my shop. I have an urban farm.
Should I just sprinkle it?
Yeah, just put it like you're feeding chickens.
Tom, don't go after it.
And that over time will begin to break down, and the microbes will begin to break it down, and they'll feed the soil. One of the microbes that we utilize is a fungal microbe, mycelium, and I made up some mycelium, which I learned with Korean natural farming, to put on my beds, and I had it as a substrate. It was in some oats, some ground oats, and I put those out there, and then I put this out there and sprayed it with the microbes. Had little spots of white, looked like cotton candy, and that's all the goodness of the mycelium coming up for the food. So it's a good thing. And what this does, it's got a symbiotic relationship, the microbes do, with the roots of the plants. And so when the plants need things, it sends them and they come and get it, okay? So those are some things you need to look at too. Compost is very important. A lot of people have a misnomer. There was a thing back to Eden Garden, and if you watch that, it's very good, but he didn't go into as much details what he's doing. He put out a lot. Anyone watch that movie? It's a real good movie, but anyway, and if you're done with that, you can grab the other bag. He talked about growing to get rid of weeds, growing in mulch. And you can, but if it's fresh mulch, it is high in tannic acids, so the seeds will dwarf. They won't grow well. Okay, it needs to set and begin to decay. But what he didn't say is he added a lot of compost. So you need a lot of compost, and then you can add the mulch, and then instead of getting down and pulling the weeds out like your arm wrestle or something,
I'll let you do
just
that.
rake them, and they come right up really easy because they don't have tight weeds. But yeah, you can go ahead and put that out too.
Same way.
Yeah, same way. But with that in mind, when you put them out, I mean with the plants, you don't want them growing directly in the mulch until the mulch had a chance to start breaking down. As it does, it will become compost and will begin to feed the plants. But until then, one of the things that's kind of the gold standard for compost is this little bag. It's worm castings. And I make my own compost, but then I'll take compost and put worms on them for about 120 days, and then they turn all that compost into worm casting, which is just a polite way of saying worm poop, because it processes through them. But it's yeah, you want to lick his hand? But anyway, as a result of that, it's much more nutrient, and so it doesn't take an awful lot to get in there and feed them. Okay. okay?
Am I putting enough on, or can you?
Yeah,
put
you're
too
fine.
much?
You're fine. And what I would do too is the next couple weeks, well, I'll advise you on that, but in the next couple weeks, I would add a little bit more and just do it about once a month during the growing season. And then when it begins to slow down and more production is happening off of it, then you don't feed then.
Now,
But
what-
this will help your soil.
So why did you plant onions every once in a while all over?
They have to have a little bit of room to grow,
Okay.
and I had bought a bunch, so I didn't. No
Do it
particular reason.
Okay.
You just thought it was pretty and spaced it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had them, and they're
thought it
running
keeps
along
bugs
the
away.
water line too.
Yeah, he has drip irrigation in there, and if you put in a bed, drip irrigation is great. I was talking to you guys earlier. It only uses about 70% less of the water you would with a pop-up. Okay, it runs longer. You run it for maybe 45 minutes versus 10 to 15. But a pop-up puts out like a 15 full, which goes 15 feet around, puts out 4 gallons a minute. That's a lot of water. This they work it by how many gallons per hour, so it's very, very little. But it's right at the roots and drips. The other beauty is with all the population we've had move into the area, we're going to run to a wall in regards to water. Those of you who live here in the Metroplex. And we remember a few years ago, all the things were drying out. Well, we haven't done anything to change other than increase our population, and God's blessed us with rain. So we need to think in terms of that. But with drip, you can continue to grow food. They have it where by hand watering or with drip, you don't. When they put a moratorium on water, you're not limited. You can still water. So that's a consideration when you water your beds. The other thing we have is the microbes. The microbes are the things that they feed the plants. They break down, they bring soil health to the soil. They feed the plants as carriers to the plants, and they fight off pathogens. So the more you have, and they make it more nutrient dense for the plants. So the more you have a good blending of microbes in there, the stronger the plants are. Therefore, the better the nutrient is, and the healthier you are as you eat it. So I've got a proprietary mix of microbes I have, and he's going to pour some of those on there. While he's doing that, and he's
Pour it out.
yeah, well, you don't need probably about half of it. Probably half of it.
How often do you put that on?
This
Pour
I put.
right on the plant.
Yeah, it won't hurt the plant. I mean, some plants can get black spot, but the beauty of this fights fungus too. So if you have like crepe myrtles that get black or get powdery mildew, if you have the microbes, you spray it on it, and they battle with them and they win. So you can use that to help some of your fungal problems.
It's my first time to ever do this. It shows.
It's okay, we're always watching you.
I only had him put 4 gallons so we didn't spill it all over himself. Any questions? Because I only have.
So how can you
about
get
there.
your stuff? Or how do you buy your?
Rebecca here, you can get us on the email and you can just order off our website.
Oh,
Okay, but we're in Fort Worth and we're up here all the time. We're going to be doing classes. Do you have the information on the class?
I do.
You want to share that?
The class is going to be, it's like an introductory class for soil health. And it is here in Denton at kind of close to the square, not too far away. And it's going to be it's not going to be a backyard garden, but it's going to be a front yard garden. And not sure exactly everything that you're going to be teaching. But
Just the date. Basically, what we're going to do is a hands-on. I can sit up here and talk all day and fill your head full, so it's great to sit around and visit with people with. But what I want to do is put tools in your hand, and then I'll work alongside you and show you how to use them. Then you walk away with authority, not just knowledge. And so you can go put it in. And if you bring a friend, guess what? You have somebody to work with you on your garden. You work back and forth, and you need to do that.
yeah, and the date is May 18th. We have flyers over here on this, right over here.
Any other questions?
How about bugs?
Bugs? What I usually use is biologicals to fight the bugs, okay? Like as things turn, as it gets warm, if you still have cabbage out or you still have broccoli, that type of stuff, what happens is you're gonna get aphids, okay? And the aphids cover the plants. Put out ladybugs, okay? Or green lacewings. And you can have those, and in fact, I'm getting ready to order a bunch because I have fire ants at my place right now too. They come and go. Use nematodes for that, which is like a microscopic worm. And it's not immediately, it's not like pouring gasoline on them, but what it does is it gets in there and it kills the larva, so it breaks the life cycle, so you have less and less. And that way you don't, pardon me?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to that. I was gonna say, what about critters?
There's another thing you can do naturally with that, depends on what critter you have. Like I have customers, like I said, I used to do all these gardens, I'm pulling back from that, but I have people that have had like not bats in the belfry, but have squirrels up in their attic. You can put out, it sounds gross, but there's a dehydrated fox urine or coyote or bobcat or mountain lion, depending on the pecking order. And so like in the attic with the squirrels, you just put out the fox urine, and as long as if it's up there, it's not a problem. They continue to smell for a while. You don't smell it, but they do. So they feel like the predators around, they stop. Outside in the area, if you put it down, as long as it's not raining, it's fine. When it rains, you need to add to it again. Okay? And you can do things too, like you were asking about protecting in the wintertime. You can take, it's not quite as pretty as this, but you can take, say every 4 foot, take here and put a piece of rebar down in that ground, just about 18-inch piece of rebar, maybe 2 feet, and then get a piece of 1/2 inch PVC, stick that in, pull it over, figure the height you want, cut it, and then cut 1, 2, 3, 4 more pieces, exact same, put those over the top of the rebar, evenly spaced, put plastic over the top of it. Then in the wintertime, if you remember, you ever work on an automobile where you have the little light that hangs on the front? Get an incandescent bowl, put it inside, and it's like a little terrarium. It'll survive through it. Food, the leaves might get burnt, but overall it will survive through if you want it to. And if you're growing, you was talking about covering the tower, you can do the same thing here, where you put it over the top of the plastic, and then you can put a shade cloth over it, so that when it's brutal hot, it's not burning it up and make the leaves grow. Okay? Any other questions? Well, good. I'll come to your house soon for vegetables.
What do you do about aphids?
Aphids, like I said, I usually put out ladybugs. Ladybugs go into hibernation when it gets to be about 50. Like last fall, we had a problem because of up and down temperature, and the ladybugs weren't active. Okay, so there's another thing called green lacewings, a little bitty wasp. It's not like that wasp's going to sting you, but it goes after it and gets them too. And there's other things you can use, like if you have, like we had some bagworm last year, but not as bad as you usually do in the pecan trees. There, you can put out a trichogama wasp, and it gets up and goes inside the bags and kills the bagworms. So using more biological control. And you can, I mean, there are some organic things you can spray on. There's a product called BT that works for like caterpillars, for worms, that type of stuff. If you have snails, or if you have roly-polies, get yourself like a tuna fish can, bury it in level with the soil, fill it full of beer, and they'll go in there and drown themselves.
Well, if I want to waste my beer.
Well, just get a bad beer, just one for me, one for them, but that's up to them.
We try to do everything organic and as natural as possible.
Yeah, well, I do it beyond that, so yeah, I can help you with a lot of that too. But hopefully you guys will start growing, whether it's a tower garden, growing in the ground, wherever. If you'd like, get on our mailing list, because I'm trying to, the other thing is too, I'm trying to pull over where I can be teaching all the time, but I still have to, pay my bills. And so what I'm trying to do is get enough of a following on YouTube that I can get people buying products, coming in and buying plants, because right now I've got a ton of vegetable plants in my shop, so anyone in the area, but people out of the area can support it too, so I can be getting more and more information out. And we're in the infancy stage, so don't look and expect some perfect production on the YouTube. Our learning curve's about like this, but we're getting there.
So how about if you don't know anything?
Well, that's where
You got a beginning class?
Yes, I do. That's what we're talking about doing over
Yeah,
at the
it's
place you're
May
talking about.
May 18th.
And what I'm wanting to do is teach people.
I have a flyer.
I've just got, that's how I met Leanne, is I just got through getting a tower because I had a niche that I wasn't filling. I was making I have some single moms that have a bunch of kids and no money, but they want to grow food. And so we use like tree pots, the black ugly pots. And I get maybe a 30-gallon, you put 7 to 9 plants in there, you can get at least 2 meals out of it a week. Okay? So they're getting something. Okay? But and that's great if you live in where you have a patio and that's all you have. But if you have a patio and you're 3rd or 4th story, carrying them up is not a problem, but what do you have to do when you tear it down? That's a messy, nasty thing to get rid of. But if you're living on the 3rd floor, you probably have enough money to buy a tower garden, so go ahead and get one. And then that way everyone can grow. So that's a niche that I have for that, because people either can't, or I have another client who loves gardening, it's her passion. But she's getting older now, and when she bends over, she gets vertigo. So she falls on her face. So the tower is perfect for her, so we're putting several towers in this one area for her.
There's a couple things that I wanted to say too, I forgot. It's not either or.
It's both.
It's both. And that's why we
But where
love
you
this.
start,
Exactly.
well, you got to start somewhere.
Start somewhere. And the towers, if you buy the base unit, you're looking at about $85 a month for a year, and then it's paid off. So that's how we
That's
got
great.
all of ours. I mean, I don't know exactly which one's the oldest anymore. They all kind of get thrown in there, but we've had one since 2013, I think, is when they first came out.
Well, I talked to Xavier, Leanne introduced me to him. He was telling me that he's down in San Antonio. He spent all this money, moved out from California, spent all this money developing land to grow in the ground. And he says he would have spent probably about a fourth if he'd have went straight to towers. He still has the ground. The biggest problem he has so much produce, he doesn't have an outlet for it. But I have an outlet because we have a CSA produce pack where once a week people come in and get a basket full of local grown organic, non-GMO fruits and vegetables. And Rebecca actually delivers up in this area or in the Keller Mid-Cities area if people want them. But we have it set up that way so you can eat well now while you're growing. And he told me that his towers, he did the math on it for his family. He says it's producing over $80 worth of food a month. So he says he's actually a net gain even when he's making the payments. So.
It's very cool.
So for your rain thing,
Okay.
so how is it, you just pump this into your downspout?
Yeah, so whenever, every time it rains, it goes down in there, and I've got them lowered so that this one fills up and then that one, so the bottom one's gonna fill up first.
Okay, so this is just a hole right here, there's
Yes.
nothing going up.
It's right over here.
This is a little